Welcome, everybody. I want to thank everyone for attending today, as I think the subject discussed today will be very helpful to your medical practice, maybe more helpful than most things we've discussed because of the current situation and maybe a loss of income that's recently happened to most medical practices. I got to read a quick disclosure. Top Doctor Platform Disclosure. That's a name, right? The Top Doctor platform is designed to bring interesting, relevant, and cutting-edge educational webinars to medical professionals. The Top Doctor platform does not participate in any profits from the sale of products. The webinar presenter or the manufacturer of the products may direct you to authorized distributors if you have further interest. All right. So thanks again, everybody, for attending this webinar today. And we're going to talk about something that I think is really important: insurance billing, both private payer and government. What most of us don't realize is that even if you enter billing codes that save the private insurance companies money, which means you underbill or you put in a code that's slightly different and you get $50 instead of $85, you could actually get in trouble, fined, or worse for what they call undercoding or simply coding errors, even if you're saving. I mean, it's ironic because technically you could be saving the government money and still get fined or worse. So what we're talking about today is a gentleman that's going to do kind of a forensic audit on billing and on your billing procedures and your coding, and this will be a free service. They have charged as much as $3,500 in the past. And one of the great things about this is if they find issues, which they're going to find some issues because nobody's perfect, sometimes by simply correcting an issue or coding for something that you should include in the procedure will actually get you more money. So what they're finding is an average practice with say $80,000 in billing is typically picking up another 20% in income, and ironically, it's protecting you when you're being more compliant. So that's a $16,000 a month income raise. And what a time could this happen when most practices are suffering a little because they really can't see patients. And if you do see patients, you want to be careful about it. So within 20 minutes of the end of this webinar, so everybody understands this, we will get out an email to everybody with a registration form. So this way you'll know how to reach these gentlemen, and then they can engage in the service. So example, again, so if you're billing, say, $100,000, you may pick up 20 grand or more in extra income by doing absolutely nothing different than you were currently doing before, and at the same time, you're protecting your practice. So what a great time to do this. So I'm going to introduce both presenters. One is David Romanowski. He's the head of one of our partners, educational partners, Doctors Referral Network and Doctors Business. And then Josh Erickson, right? That's your last name, Josh, right? Erickson? Josh Erickson. He's really kind of like a forensic auditor with lots of experience, but his title here is a long one, Revenue Cycle Management Specialist. All right. So listen, this is fantastic. I'm so glad you guys are doing this because I think we're going to help a lot of practices. All right. So once again, you should take advantage of this, especially if you've got a little downtime. Take over, Dave. Thanks so much.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, thanks so much, Vince. I really appreciate it. As Vince shared, my name is Dave Rominski. I'm the president and CEO of Doctors Business, along with a couple other companies in healthcare. But really, this we're going to talk about today, strategic coding optimization, is one of our service lines I'm most passionate about. And the reason is this. You know, I always joked, and it's really not funny, that I have a wonderful home in Hawaii that I can never visit, right? And the analogy of this is the money I left on the table in my practice by not absolutely doing the coding optimization items that I should, not because, you know, I just didn't know any better, frankly. And really finding specialists who deal with this program, this opportunity is really what we strive for. And one thing that really you might not be aware of a lot of physicians out there is that, you know, insurance companies, their whole objective is to keep your money as long as possible and to make sure that their patients' premiums that they're paying, they keep that money as long as possible also. So they're constantly changing numerous different things. So, for example, January 1st, there was 394 codes that were changed, all right, by the AMA. 248 new codes, like there's not enough of them already, 71 codes that were deleted, over 75 different revisions, all kinds of things that are going on that are affecting truly what is getting in your bottom line. Okay, now with what we do, this is not a billing company that just does regurgitation. For example, some of your companies, your EMRs and things they utilize out there that are automated are dang near criminal on what they're doing to offices that are set up out there. This is something that we are not adding, stuff that's not being done. This is truly being built directly off of the procedures, off of your notes, and what's being done in the office. Now, a lot of times, in one of our clients is shared too, is, they've been doing this stuff forever. They just weren't sure how to be able to go and bill it and make sure you're being compliant doing so. So we're not making up anything. We're not adding stuff that's not there. This is strictly being done off of the services that you're being provided in your office. So one thing that's pretty important with what you're actually doing in your office and the compliance part of it is to make sure that not only your documentation is correct, but it matches the services that you're being provided, whether it's on different E&M codes or different items being set up there. I know that Vince had mentioned that, some of you may see a 20% increase. Frankly, if we're only getting 20%, we're probably missing stuff. We can probably do a lot more than that. But again, for anything that we do in these programs and some items that we're going to look over, there is zero obligation to you. This program, what we do is you give us access to your EMR for usually about 1 week, all right? And what we do is we get a login. Our revenue cycle management team, Josh's teams, goes in and will analyze these programs. And what we do is then we have a meeting back with you and says, okay, here's where you're at now. Here's what we see that you're missing. Here's what else you could possibly be doing. And here's what it looks like from a revenue side for you, okay? So we'll give you a full report that sits down and walks through a full analysis. There is zero obligation to utilize our program, right? Costs you nothing. There's no obligation. Does most people we get done doing a presentation move forward with us? Yes, because they leave a lot of different monies on the table. Now, what happens, one question we get all the time with this program is okay, so you do an analysis, you guys are looking and you show us a bunch of different things. How does this affect my current staff or my current billing company or my current whatever it's looking at? We want to make sure for any of our programs that we're dealing with, for anything you're doing currently, your dollar amount, let's say for easy numbers, you're doing $100,000 a month, okay? We will not take off of your billing side of what you're paying currently. We will match that. We will not increase your fees whatsoever from your base level. So you have no risk, right, on increasing your fees for what we're doing currently, and we're not looking at getting rid of your staff or firing your staff. There's plenty of work to be done there, okay? So there's definitely something that you don't have to worry about per se as far as those items go, as far as the stability in items as far as your staff goes. Now, one thing that's important to you that I want to make sure you guys understand is that with any of our programs, any of this analysis and different items that we're doing, we want to make sure we understand a little bit more about you and what your practice is going to be. So it's a form that you guys go and fill out. It takes you maybe 5 minutes to understand a little bit more of what you're doing. Now, one thing you will notice on here is it'll talk about ancillary information. We want to know if there's other things that you're doing in your office also. So not only are we able to increase your optimization of what you're doing currently, but there's numerous other things you may be adding that you could possibly add to your practice that flow right into what you're doing now to add significant revenue to what you're doing. So our whole thing is this. I mean, healthcare is a business, right? You might as well start treating it as such if you don't already. So we want to make sure we're able to optimize what you're doing currently, make sure you're capturing all the items that you should be, but then also making sure you're compliant. Just as Vince talked about, a lot of people, y'all get the wonderful scare letters. Oh, listen, you're on the 85th percentile for billing 99203s, right? Well, yeah, you should be because that's the procedure being done, right? So they give you those scare tactics to try to make sure that, you're not charging the service that you should be, all right? So that doesn't make sense either that they're doing it. And there's really nothing wrong that you're doing illegally. And actually, if you're billing a 99202 and you should have been billing on 203, that's not compliant either, right? So understanding the concepts of what's going on, the world of healthcare and insurance stuff is crazy as far as what's going on with different market shares and what they're able to go and do. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to show a couple different things here. This shows you a sample of one of our clinics, all right? And this is again, this is a very modest one as far as we're going to do. They looked at it and did the analysis, and again, it does not matter your specialty. It has nothing to do with your specialty. All right. You lost my screen, did you?
Yes, we do not see your screen at the moment. If you click on the very middle top circle,
that allows you to share. Yeah, I did that. It says, let me see if it comes back again.
I do
Oh,
like
now we're
that
back.
note you made, Dave. I do like that you said that about payers like United Healthcare and those a bunch of different payers do send letters indicating, kind of you scare tactic like you said, if you bill 215s, 214s, they try and push you to a 213. I don't see too many 212s these days unless it's like, a quick visit. But yeah, even that, try and get you to reduce or stay in the safe lane and build an abundance of 213s. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I still don't see your screen,
Yeah.
just so you know.
Still don't see my screen. I wonder why. Let me see here.
I have
We're allowed to do this.
some sample client stuff if need be, and I can try and share mine.
Yeah, I'm going to show them. I don't want to. You guys see it now? Still nothing, huh?
Mm-mm. See a bunch of circles.
All right. Well, I'll go.
All the people on the phone.
I'll go. Yeah, I see the circles. I see the circles also, but then I go to my screen. It doesn't allow me to do that. Okay. Well, they're going to have one thing that I think they take a look at is on any clients or anything that we're working on, right? It's establishing a baseline of where you're at, and then making sure that you're able to determine what we're getting out of this. Here we go. How about this? Does that help you guys? See me anything now? Nothing yet? Okay. All right, that's fine. Well, then maybe we can let Josh go and do it. Basically what this does is we take your encounters where you're at right now, find out a baseline of your practice. We're going to review the last 6 months, all right? Whatever you were at for 6 months, we determine whatever your baseline is going to be. We get an average claim amount or payment that you're being made out of those, and then we do this analysis. The analysis is 1 week long. We look at your practice from A to Z. It costs you nothing. As Vince had shared, it's usually about $3,500 to $4,000 to do the analysis for you. We break down more details than you probably have seen in quite some time as far as your practice and where you're at, and then give you a plan about what it looks like going forward. Our programs and our systems that we do, if you choose to utilize us, we get paid on, we match your existing and we get paid on the upswing. All right, so we get paid on the increases that you go and make for your practice. So there's nothing additional out of your pocket that you're paying. We have a group right now that we just got the report for one of our doctors in Oklahoma that had started us and was doing about right around $30,000 to $40,000 of collections a month that they were doing. Josh, do you remember what he's doing now?
Yeah, we ballparked at 35. We hit 72 last month. We've only been together for 30 days. But his billing was really, really bad and behind. I'm not going to lie to you. I mean,
we're not going to double it overnight, for sure.
Yeah. But, I mean, I do, we have testimonials, obviously, Dr. Moore, a couple other providers that have seen, 2.5 times in 34 business days, because of the coding and just opportunities missed that they were actually already doing and just didn't know how to get it onto a CMS 1500 appropriately and mapped and, coded and structured. So we build workflow and here's is what we do.
Yeah, and here's the other thing is too, guys. Listen, here's the deal. This is not thinking that you're billing $50,000 now and you're going to be billing $150 in 60 days. That's not what this is about, and throwing up a bunch of random codes or things like that. That's not this at all. Some of you are in great shape, right? Some of you may only add 10% to your practice. You're doing a great job. Other ones, though, when they get the analysis of it to kind of see what's going to go on, there's a lot more room for growth there. Now, here's one of the things we get all the time. Well, you know what? I got a new billing company, or my billing person's been there for 20 years, and they do a great job. Wonderful. Why not check it out? Let's make sure they do, right? What do you have to lose? You have nothing to lose, right? And that accountability, for example.
Or they may not just know. I mean, because these codes come out, and it's tough, especially if you've got one person in your office. It's tough to keep up.
Well, our providers always ask me how I got to the point where I'm, obviously I'm a public auditor by degree and by craft. So, being an accountant, I get asked that all the time, like, how do you know all this? How did you learn this? And I'm like, well, I'm the guy who's up late night reading the 88-page United Healthcare bulletin that was just released, and you didn't. That's how I know this, because it was on page 75.
I've been telling everybody it's YouTube. You learned on
YouTube? That'll take you down a different rabbit hole sometimes, But no, absolutely. It's just learning the rhetoric, understanding payer guidelines, and then really complementing what you're doing and revamping what you're doing. I mean, I see a lot of providers, trying to hit 215s because they spent quality time with a patient. They're trying to hit 95 guidelines, but they don't understand how CMS and the AMA structures billing. You can have 95 guidelines, commingled 97. You can use time, complexity. You just have to know how to structure it, state it, build the rhetoric in the note, and make it audit proof, and give them what they want. And then also, obviously, there's a lot of things that providers do, like back and forth minutia, pre and post stuff.
Now, Josh, are you ready for the tough question?
Sure.
Josh, you ready for the tough question? So
Absolutely.
what happens if you help this doctor out and 8 months later they get the letter, and it's a scary letter, it says audit. Audit.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Did you say beautiful?
Basically, yeah, beautiful. It doesn't really, and as long as the chart work was, even if, let's say I come in, well, obviously we come into the clinic but maybe they're a new client, and it's end of the year, like we have clients that we've just signed that they're getting HEDIS requests, where it's, an abundance of documentation, and we're actually prepping that. And let's say the rendering provider on the claim was Dr. A, who's the director of the clinic because their billing is him, but this was Medicare and it's incident 2 and there was new symptoms. Well, I would queue up that doctor to either put a new statement into the system to categorize that claim as incident 2 and qualify it, because Medicare will actually say, hey, even though you signed it, there's no statement here saying you reviewed it, and they'll take the incident 2 money back, which is just the payment, in essence, because you billed as, maybe the owner instead of the nurse prac or whatever the case may be. So, I see a lot of that actually. If they can't catch you on, let's say you're billing 214 and that's all that goes on your claim. Let's say you're just a family practitioner. 214 is like what you bill all day. Right, so you're missing probably 3/4 of your revenue, just to be upfront with you right now, if that's you. If you're doing like 30, 40, 50K, 60K, and because of volume, you could be doing probably 3-4 fold off miscoding. But what happens is, there's just I guess the opportunity and the structure. I just basically revamp that and give you what you already know because you learned it in your educational, your CEUs. They just don't tell you how to produce it in clinic. Does that make sense? I tried to fast forward to the end of that so I don't talk for an hour because I could talk coding for days.
No, it makes lots of sense. Maybe I or half the people don't understand the coding numbers, but we get the principle. Just understand, they hear that, many doctors or many practices would rather hear malpractice lawsuit than
Oh yeah,
CMS
I have
audit.
clients that'll tell you
CMS
that
audit sounds scary.
And our team actually was the first time they ever had charts reviewed before they were submitted. That's a crazy concept, right? Like whoever's been submitting your documentation is just doing it in the blind. That's probably not good business practice, right? So before we submit anything, we review it. And let's say a signature's not there, something's not there, rhetoric's not there. Maybe you build an injection, but there's no injection, there's no dictation of that in your note besides the coding. I'll tell you, hey, look, man, you need to code the injection. You need to state that you did an injection of the knee, and if you use fluoro or whatever, document it appropriately, dictate how the patient tolerated it, so they can't redact that money, right? Because they can if you don't have proper dictation. So it's just ensuring that you're audit proof across the board. As an auditor, as a Fortune 500 M&A auditor, at one point in my career and a controller, I understand, the structure of audit, right? And the hierarchy of things. And as long as, you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's and you're really actually, you're billing appropriately for what you're doing, there's no worry, right? I welcome audit because I'm not going to do anything illegal, and I'm not going to steer a provider in a negligent manner, By no means. There's no need to do that. You can actually make more money billing appropriately. That's the crazy part. It's just very
it's amazing and technically get in less trouble. I actually have a doctor acquaintance that was not documenting their office visits correctly, and they're actually losing money by not documenting them. And
absolutely, everybody on this call can probably tell you. They get documentation requests for anything. You can bill a 213 by itself and get a documentation request for no reason, just because that was the random.
But the spiral was he wasn't documenting the office visits correctly, so some of the other follow-up things he was billing for weren't getting paid. And then he had an issue, and he wasn't coding.
Yeah.
Then he got fined, and it was really kind of
ugly. Yeah, it can get ugly fast, you know. I mean, especially depending on what payer you're referencing, right? I mean, hopefully it's not state or federal, right? You know, because those are always.
Well, this was CMS, and the funny part is he was probably collecting $60,000 less a month than he should have been. So almost $1 million, $750,000 a year. But listen to this. So we actually had to arrange a loan where he cashed out of his house to pay back almost $300,000 instead of collecting $750,000. I mean, it's the craziest thing in the world because he didn't really do anything. There was no criminal intent here. There was no error. As a matter of fact, he was missing one thing, and that that was the domino.
That the team that you would, you know, if you hire somebody, you know, the problem with, and I have multiple licenses behind my name, CPC, CRCMA, you know, like these CRCM, like these licensing, you just take, right? Everybody on this call knows if you're a biller, you can just, you know, you don't have to have any formal background. You can actually pay to go take the test as many times as you want until you pass it. That's the unfortunate truth, you know? So people who want a better future for themselves may take it 8 to 10 times and then end up on somebody's team or end up in your office. Now, they're not competent. They just finally took the test enough times to pass it. You don't. And
by the way, that $300,000 that this doctor paid, instead of collecting $750,000, that $300,000 was the settlement. They wanted a lot more.
Oh yeah.
I can't even mention.
I've gotten a lot of providers out of debt, and Dave can attest to that because every provider I work with and that we work with nationally, I hate to say it, but most are in a position where they've been breaking even or barely making it, or you know, and they've lived their lifestyle on borrowed funds, you know.
Mm. Yeah. So who wouldn't?
Point, you know.
Who wouldn't welcome an extra $20,000?
I'll show you something right now that's a client we actually signed in January or in December, mid-December, and we started really getting rolling, and we picked up everything in January. And these numbers actually are understated, and Dave can tell you that. This first quarter, we did $121,000 and some change over their last quarter, over every quarter of last year, actually. And their last quarter was their strongest. And so we beat last quarter by 121. Do you want to show you there? You know,
you're going to try to share it now?
I'm going to show you my project. Yeah, if you can let it, okay. I'll show you, you know, basically what our forecasting looks like, which is what Dave was, you know, he was discussing. But it's, you know, it's hard to conceptualize projections. Do you know what I mean? So I would like to show it so people could see, you know, whoever's on the call, doctors, practice managers, maybe even a biller. You know, maybe if you're an accountant. I don't know. If you're an accountant, you'll really appreciate this. And that's most of my clients, you know, I mean, not most of them, all of them appreciate the accounting that we bring because that's our structure, because that's my structure. We have juniors and seniors, and it's very, very, Dave can tell you, meticulous. You know, like our team is very, very savvy. And that's how we're able to scale clinics, you know. That's how we're able to provide.
And that's the biggest thing. Right, for everybody as far as dealing with it, right, the biggest thing is going to be is that there's no obligation to you. It doesn't matter whether you have a billing service you've had for years or if it's a new billing company. It doesn't matter, right? You can get an eval. Everybody should have a checks and balances being done. So the eval that we do, we can kind of share where you're at. If you're doing great, wonderful. At least you know, right? It's a third-party opportunity to take a look at where you're at with zero obligation to you. And who knows? Maybe you find $20,000 a month, you know, or $250,000 a year. Who knows? I mean, I want to see how that reviews. So that's something to take a look at.
Disgruntled. Because as Dave said, we're you know, we're shooting to pack on more than $20,000. What we find to be the case, as most of our clients would say, is the AR component that we bring is huge because, I mean, even this year, I mean, say you end up wanting to follow up with us. I mean, we have, you know, clients that would tell you that they're getting paid. Literally, we worked a claim that got repaid this year for January of 2018. Because the prior billing company just kept resubmitting this claim negligently 40 some odd times. No joke. And so it was still a live claim. They were still responding to it. And we ended up sending an appeal letter and stuff like that, I believe. And it was on a remit. And we have stuff like that all the time. 2019 claims, we always start at, you know, most clients will start a year in arrears and then work back because other stuff will continue to trickle in because of the negligence of the prior company or the prior biller or the, you know, when I say negligence, I don't mean that. Maybe the lack of attention to detail, you know. So they'll just keep, you know, going through the motions, you know, not really actually working, more so what I like to call sliding paper from one side of the table to the next,
Josh, you wanna email it to me and see if I can get it up? I'll put it up right now. Email it to Vince@topdr.com. Vince@topdr.com @dr.
Give me 1 second. All right, go ahead. Vince,
VinceE, top, T-O-P, DR like doctor.com.
All right. Gotcha.
My email. I should open my email, right?
Hold on. I missed the @ sign. And so this is what an audit looks like. I'm gonna just let me adjust one thing because I was dabbling with their numbers right now.
No, you got me kind of excited because I want to see 20 extra grand.
Absolutely. 1 second. All right. You should have that in just a second.
Did you email it?
So we also, even if we just do an audit, there's never been an audit that we didn't end up doing business with, whether it be consulting or full rev cycle. Unfortunately, there's always an opportunity because there's always missed revenue. There's always.
All right, I just got your Excel spreadsheet. I'm going to.
But if you're a pain or an ortho or a very procedural based provider, then you usually are losing on the AR because, let's say you're just doing an SI injection. I mean, there's no, it's just one code, right? So it's not like variability. It's legwork. It's your team. It's the follow up. 110%. It's attention to detail and the follow up. And depending on what you're doing, PA management, stuff like that, understanding formularies, we understand. We're not just pressing submit and, auto posting.
All right, I got your screen open right now. I think everybody can see it.
All right, so this was this was their yearly analysis that I ran. I kind of build this for them. So if they didn't have anything, like I said, we met these guys in December. So this was all I didn't do the last quarter because we wouldn't have had figures. So go to the second tab at the bottom. And this is just something I give them so that even if if we just do an audit, they have that for life. They can use that, so they can run quarter to quarter and see how they're doing, right? What's your revenue points, at least in the system. Now, most clients we take have never, usually have never done a system to bank rec, which is a crazy thing to me because as an accountant, that's an automatic, right? But they're not recking system to bank, so they have discrepancies in their system where 1 month you may post 50K, the next month 100K, but in the bank you make 65K a month, right?
So I'm looking at your strategic code optimization in blue.
So that's another story. So this data analysis here, if you scroll up, this is a pain clinic. This is a pain management group that does a very heavy procedural based. And most patients are going through more than one, are there for more than one procedure. They have multiple doctors. So I just give you encounter data. So their average monthly income, they're not estimated, they're per the system, and then we actually did the bank afterwards and stuff. So we do about 105K a month. So we just ballpark it to hit that baseline. That's what Dave was talking about, what we're going to match. So they had a billing company. They actually had an in-house biller. We matched that, basically that price, and came to 1% for the match. Then as I audited their information, all the system data, and so stop right here. And so this strategic coding optimization, this projections right here is actually what I want to cover. So you're in the right spot. Just hang out for a second. So because they're so heavily procedural based, I basically am telling them on their new and follow-up encounters, I took 50% of the encounters and I said on 50% of those with what I reviewed and what you're doing in your note and what I know you're missing, I can add an extra, $134 on every other claim, give or take, like new patients and follow-ups, right? And that actually is understated. I always underpromise, overdeliver. I'll take my computation and I'll reduce and kind of, there's actually an algorithm on this page, like an actual formula. But anyway, so I'm kind of trying to get ballpark numbers. So I'm saying with our coding rhetoric that I'm going to apply and some AR work that I know needs to be done, I'm projecting $170K a month, give or take, because we're trying to get good mean average numbers, right? So then if we actually hit those figures, which in this clinic's case, we're actually doing better than that, the projected gross with the additional revenue, so what they would have done at $105K a month is 1.26. Now with our coding rhetoric and our team on the account, they're going to finish over $2 million, the projected.
So you picked up in blue here. This is rounded.
Yes, that's
$65,000 a month.
Yeah. Right, that's the projected gain. Right.
So it's approximately 720, 780 a year, almost $1 million, $750,000 $1 million. And the practice has done nothing. Yeah. They're doing nothing different than they were doing before, correct?
Nothing different. Actually, they cut some costs.
Okay, I'm sold.
A couple of people go.
Okay, I'm sold. Brock does our payroll. Can you figure out how to get me 50% more?
I haven't audited you, so I can't.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
But yes, depending on what you're doing, absolutely. So yeah, this clinic, Dave will tell you, we're killing it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the billing carve out. We actually don't marginalize the existing, we price match, and then we marginalize the gain because that's monies that you were never recognizing anyways. And so, if you can pay a percent, it's better return than you can get in the market. And that's what I tell all my private equity buddies, Like I give providers better return than they get in the market. Playing with those guys, I assure you. And it's consistent. And it's, it's your business. So
right. And at the same time, you're affording them kind of a reasonable audit protection, right?
So other things we do, right? Yeah, and like I clean things up. Like if you're doing ancillary testing, which they were, I actually have a super bill that I created for that specific test for another group that I worked with years ago, and I've kept revamping it and tweaking it per provider type, and so I implement those things. I pull out their cruddy super bill and I replace it with a new template and new structure and add stuff into it, like say you're an endo or a primary care or an internist or even a pain doc, something like a foot eval, like that you're not capturing but you're doing. Little bitty things that make $70 here, $80 there. They just all add up. And when I see them in the dictation or when I talk to it, obviously every provider, has their own rhetoric. But when I talk to them, don't scroll down too far. I don't want to cover any ancillary options because not all clinics will be doing that. But
yeah, I know. The point is that I think we got it.
Pretty much any standard internist pain group. Yeah, exactly. It's all things you're doing, and payers have gotten so granular on you that you don't know how to capture it anymore. That's the problem.
No, I think this kind of tells the story. I learned a long time ago. They've kind of learned it now. Now shut up, Vince. So the moral of the story is here. You're offering them there's a couple of advantages here. One, you're really kind of protecting the clinic from,
compliance,
billing issues, billing issues, right? With compliance, right? So for compliance standpoint, you win, and then you're picking up extra income. So in this case, I don't expect most practices to be in this position, but this is a super game. So even if the average practice picks up $15,000 a month or $10,000, they're going to be happy.
Yes, because it's on top of it's on top of cost of goods. So it's on top of everything that you would. It's just cash that you would have never recognized. Absolutely. So it's margin. It's pure margin. Absolutely.
And they're protecting themselves from CMS or Blue Cross or Anthem, whoever coming back in the future and saying you did this wrong. You owe us
well, yeah. I have
my amigos $600,000 back.
Providers. Unfortunately, your specialty providers, especially if you're depending on how long you've been in business, you're elderly, et cetera, you've been billing one way and maybe haven't, like you said, you have 20-year staff with you and they're loyal and they're great and they may be doing an excellent job on the back end, but they're not doing any business development, which is the rhetoric, right? Like, so every 215 could have potentially been billed differently, restructured time, metric, change the note up a little bit, and then, you make more revenue, or change your workflow. There's a lot of it just depends on the clinic structure, man. Everything's different per clinic. So being an auditor and my team being structured, so we just kind of, we get personal, kind of figure out what you're doing, how you're doing it, and perfect it for you, and then take a percent of the margin.
So why don't we do this? I think where we are now is everybody's got the message. So I think the next step is that we send out an email. We recorded this, and so doctors can re-reference it, or the practice manager, and then we can get this out to sales reps that want it and other doctors in our network, because we have a pretty big network, and in that way, maybe, because the questions that we typically ask, like for say, a product that a laser that gets rid of scars, they're a little bit less personal than billing questions. A lot of doctors won't want to ask these questions directly. Maybe their practice manager would, maybe engage in a more detailed question of what they're doing. So I think that
right.
maybe
absolutely.
Because I think the way we do this is because I don't know what else we could. This is pretty remarkable.
The audit, like Dave said.
Well, and Vince,
honestly,
and
the
Vince,
audit is what really opens eyes.
Yeah. Vince, you have an email with the information that we really need from these providers.
Oh, yeah.
5 minutes to fill it out. We can do a full eval for them, get all their questions answered, and really see if they're a fit. Because everybody's a little unique in what they're doing, so we want to make sure we can
Dave, what a better time. I mean, a lot of these people just aren't open right now, and when they do open, they're not going to see as many patients right away. You might as well take advantage of, some of the extra time you have right now. What a better time.
You want to be ballpark about the truth about matters right now. The reason CMS and all payers went ahead, and like 99% of payers, I won't say all payers, but majority of payers across the game allowed the office to stay as office, like your service location to be 11, and then and then you just add 95 as your modifier, and that's how you indicate telehealth or telemedicine is going on, for these visits for this time period, because providers and their billers were screwing this up, because you have to understand how to map your service locations. Like, let's say I'm an endo and I do a read or something as well. So you have to change your service location. Your E&M code would have 02 for telemedicine, and then the rest would go back to 11 because those can't be billed that way. So you had a lot of providers getting rejections, and they were like, look, let's simplify this. Unfortunately, these people aren't getting it, Let's make it remedial. So that's what they did across the board for right now. And because of COVID going on, I mean, it makes sense, because you don't want anybody who doesn't understand how to bill a claim to be hindered revenue-wise. Right? That's actually why, they did that. So if anybody's on this call, that's doing telemedicine, which is probably everybody right now. Or
they want to. We get the calls all the time. Right?
Hopefully,
well, I
have providers doing telemedicine doing $250, office visits, So
that's amazing.
You can.
I'm being told they're
right
getting
now,
$30 or something.
I mean, if you're not face to face and you're just doing a brief call, I mean, there's a bunch of different codes for that. That's the problem. What clinics do all day is shuffle phone calls and do risk adjustment and counseling and blah blah blah, and they never capture it. I mean, if we had to talk with every clinic on here and we're like, how many MAs do you have that are dedicated to just, somebody calls and they don't remember what their medication assignment was. They don't know whether to take warfarin and Eliquis together or what they're supposed to do, and should they stop one? What was and they have to reference back to the doctor. There's messaging that goes on. That's all minutia. Like, you pay somebody for that, and you should get reimbursed for that. And
well, one of the doctors on here,
the provider has to talk to a patient. They just do it, and they nobody thinks to do anything with it, and it's just eaten. You just eat it, and so you're just doing free work all day that I end up picking up and building rhetoric for.
I tell you right now, I don't know of a presentation that we've had in recent history that's been more self-explanatory than this. There's really no risk. There's a possibility of lots of gain, and at the same time, you're actually, protecting your practice by making it more compliant and creating a better paper trail for an audit defense if that were to come up. So
that's really what
I almost think we should end it unless,
really.
Dave, you want to add anything.
No, I think as you mentioned, Vince, it's pretty self-explanatory. Let's get in touch with the doctors, do an eval for them, and see if we can help.
All right, great. Thank you so much, everybody. And then, we'll be in touch. You will have an email, okay, within the next 30 minutes. If not, email VINCE at TopDR, the abbreviation for doctor, so topdoctor.com, and I'll make sure you get one. Or, I guess that's it. Thank you so much, everybody. Josh, it was great talking to you. I mean, I may actually call you with some other questions, but I don't want to ask them on the phone here either.
Yeah, I figured that much.
I'm gonna end with something funny. One of the doctors just texted me about 10 minutes ago, and he wants to ask some questions, but his wife is his biller, and she's right next to him.
Oh, that's so funny, man. And what's sad is, I mean, like my girlfriend makes jokes about it all the time because, I mean, most of my docs call me in the afternoon after hours to discuss things. So, like, it's always ongoing. Like, I just, I work around the clock, so it doesn't bother me, because we have clients coast to coast. So I'm early riser, last to go to sleep. So, yeah.
But on that same note, Vince, we did have one of our clients the wife was her biller, and she's like, wait a minute, you're going to add $25,000 a month to my practice? I quit. So she's like, that's not that at all.
I wasn't going to say that, but I actually, after this call, I had a call with Will.
That's
I think she's a fan of mine at this point, currently.
Yep, she's quitting, no doubt about it. All right, sounds good, guys.
Well,
Thanks so much.
His wife's on the phone right now, just warning you guys. She's